Sorry.
Jason Griffith concert.
I did a little bit of, I rapped a little Outcast earlier
Nice.
for a couple privileged audience members. Well, it's the M-I crooked letter and nothing better. I went up on the microphone, you best to wear your sweater because I'm cooler than a polar bear's toenails. Oh, here, there he go again, talking that
Oh, Lord.
All right. Southern playlist.
That's right, man.
MoMoCon. It's Atlanta's answer to Comic-Con. You won't want to miss it.
Who deserves the first question? You're right in front of me. What's happening, man?
What would you say is like your favorite character line? Like that resonates with you. What sticks with you?
As Sonic or, well, I just love Latinas. I like that one because it gets a reaction. Also, Latinas are cool. Well, as Sonic, the one line that I had to do about 20 times during the recording of the first episode of Sonic X was, remember, never use Formula One race cars when chasing hedgehogs. Because I couldn't do it. I was so nervous. So they just had me do it over and over and over. So now I can do it. Sure.
Carnell from Carnell Holley Pictures. So could you explain the transition between Jaleel White doing the voice to you taking over as
Well, there was Ryan Drummond in between us, and I think we all sort of we followed the same trajectory as far as the voice imprint, because Ryan sounded a little bit like Jaleel, and then when I auditioned for Sonic, they played me some of Ryan's clips and said, we don't want you to impersonate this, but we want you to come close. And so I did my best version of that. But at the same time, I was also auditioning for Chris Thorndike on Sonic X. And one of the producers came into the room named Michelle Dunn during the callback, and she said, that voice you're doing for Chris, do that for Sonic. And so it was the voice that I landed on for Sonic was actually the voice I was using for my audition for Chris. So that's sort of and then as far as my own evolution, when I was doing Sonic X, Sonic sounded a little bit like this. But by the time we did the games, he sounded like this. And that was basically same producers coming in saying, you got to make him cooler. He's got to have more edge to him for the games, so that, that's where I started and that's where I ended. Sir.
JV or JV versus the World, you've been in the game for a long time. That just not just Sonic, but just other roles as well. What is your nerdy origin story? How did you get from the beginning to getting into this?
You want me to get into it, man? The quick answer is I always wanted to be on a sitcom. I grew up watching sitcoms. I was infatuated with Full House. And I wanted to marry Candace Cameron. I wanted to be John Stamos. I did my first school play when I was 12. And I was a nerd. I was zits on my face, giant glasses that shouldn't have been on any kid. And, I was picked on a lot too because I was a big Elvis fan and just, your basic nerd, but not in a cool way. And when I did my first school play, I got the lead role, and there was something so powerful about that, where I really felt cool for the first time in front of all the people who picked on me and all the girls I wanted to date. Just that whole thing really stuck with me. And a couple years later, I went to a talent convention in Orlando with my cousin. We got an agent who said, move out to New York and I'll represent you. And so we both did. And my cousin named Jeremy, he had immediate success because he was 18, but he looked 14, which is like, and he was really good looking. He could act, and he was a good dude. So he just booked everything. I had the opposite problem. I was 18, but I looked 40. So nobody was buying me as like the editor of the high school paper. Any of the stuff I was auditioning for, I just didn't get. And my agent, I think, saw that as an opportunity to try a different area. So they started sending me on voiceovers, and like I immediately hit. I think it was all that pent up, like I'm watching my cousin who I lived with in New York, like have all this success. I'm like, I want some of that, just a little bit of it, So when voiceovers came around, I'm like, this is my chance, And I became the voice of JetBlue when I was 19, and did 1,000 commercials and did like an animated pilot for MTV that never got picked up. But it was 5 years of auditioning before I actually even got to audition for Sonic. Um, but I remember, I don't think I've ever told this. The night before my audition for Sonic, maybe it was the callback. I had it wasn't a Talk Boy, but do you remember those like handheld Walkman type things with cassette tapes? Exactly, Home Alone. I had one of those, and I tied it to my shower curtain like line as a microphone that just hung like this, and I practiced as many Sonic voices as I could, any iteration of the Sonic voice I could. So somewhere out there is a cassette tape of me practicing Sonic back in 2003. That's pretty much it. The other sort of addition to that is, my whole life I just wanted a video camera. Every Christmas, every birthday, I just asked for a video camera, but we didn't have enough money because they were like $1 billion back in the 80s and 90s. So every year, instead of a video camera, my parents would give me a voice recorder. And so again, I think I just channeled all of that creativity that I wanted to use in the video camera into the voice recorder. And, that certainly is something that I think helped be really comfortable in front of them on a mic and just enjoy talking into a microphone. Yeah, that's it. That's the story. Yes, sir.
So, Media Nut, good to see you again, my friend.
too.
Hopefully you're doing well. Welcome back to MoMoCon.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for being here. You are a legend, a personal hero. Last year, my girlfriend asked you, you and Kirk, whether or not water was wet. Now this year, I'm asking in a more serious professional sense, when it comes to the legacy of Sonic and seeing how not just as a game icon, but also like as an entertainment icon, he's been able to meet and cross over with so many big names. Where it's like obviously with Mario, Mega Man, and now recently with the Justice League. Now,
Yeah.
When it comes to Sonic or just any Sonic character, where would you, as someone who has voiced Sonic at one point, like, what is one crazy idea for some sort of crossover that you think people would love to see or you would like to see?
I want an Elvis jumpsuit, one side Sonic, one side Shadow. See, that's the appropriate response. That's that's what I want. I actually had AI make me one and then put my face on the person that was wearing it. It looks really good. But in all seriousness, I don't know, man. Gosh, I don't know. It's a great question. What do you want to see?
Ooh, mine is, I'm a boring answer, to be honest. To this day, I find it crazy how like I said, Sonic's been able to cross over with Mega Man and Pac-Man.
Yeah.
And technically we have Smash Bros. In the Olympic Games, but I want a real, genuine, like, action-adventure Sonic and Mario.
That's a great
It's
idea.
crazy
Yeah.
that we don't have that.
I think I think it'd be really interesting to see more of a dialogue RPG like Sonic, where you're answering questions and sort of. I love those games, especially the ones on Sega CD, where you would sort of choose the item you put in your hand before you walk into the room and choose what the dialogue was you spoke with other people.
Like, it affects what happens next. Very much,
Right.
Who does the Walking Dead games again?
Yeah, exactly. I think that'd be a great idea, interspersed with a little bit of like side-scrolling action.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then back to you have to buy some stuff from a store. Yeah, I think that would be really cool, actually. Yes, ma'am, with the crazy eyes.
Yes, hi. So looking back at your time as Sonic, what was your favorite moment behind the scenes? And what's something that you wish you would have changed in hindsight?
My favorite moment had to have been booking the job. When no, but in all seriousness, I was working odd jobs. Up until that point, I was working at a pizzeria. They dressed me up in the Best Buy box once, and I was handing out coins in Central Park to people like, "Don't touch me." I'm like, "You don't like money?" And I also worked at my agent's office. And the day that they called to book me on it, when 4Kids called, my agent was out of town. and I was filling in for him answering phones. And I answered the phone when 4Kids called. And they said, Jason Griffith came in and auditioned for us last week. And I couldn't tell them it was me because it's not supposed to be me answering the phone. And so I'm like, oh man, I'm going to get to hear the rejection firsthand, you know. And I said, yes, I know Jason. And they said, oh, great, we'd like to book him on Wednesday as Sonic. And I was like, okay, I'll let him know. And the funniest thing is, though, I told my agent when he called to check in, and he didn't believe me. I'm like, John, Shay, no, you didn't. I was like, no, I promise you, I booked him. And it took me getting one of the other agents on the phone with him to convince him that I had booked it. That's how like unbelievable it was that I booked the role, you know. And it was great, you know. It really started my career because it started with Sonic, and then I was able to like branch out into almost every single show that 4Kids was doing at that time. And then from there, different directors, different studios, and it just opened up so much. But only as of recently did I realize that even this convention aspect was right. Because I mean, I did Pete Capella and I and Lisa Ortiz and Mike Pollock did a couple conventions back 15 years ago that completely stopped at least two of us from doing conventions until about a year and a half ago. They were just horrible experiences. But it's a different, you know, it wasn't like this. And what was the other part of your question? Oh, what would I do differently?
Yeah, like what's something that you wish you changed?
I don't know how to answer that because I think everything I did brought me to this point, and I'm, you know, in a place in my career right now where I'm still, like, I'm working on two projects right now that I can't talk about, but I can't believe I'm involved with these projects because they're so incredible. Because I was much of a perfectionist. I was never happy with my own performance, and I think even though I wish I could say to myself, don't be so critical on yourself. I think that's what made me a better actor now is because I was never satisfied. And I always had a really high standard of like what I should be creating, you know? So, sir.
What's going on, man? Jeremiah Baker, otherwise known as Baker J. And man, I wanted to say that Sonic Unleashed is my favorite Sonic game of all time.
Yes.
Sonic the Werehog is such a different type of role, especially like for you. So as someone who's, of course, voiced regular Sonic before, when you saw that script or when you kind of figured it out, like, hey, I'm changing Sonic's voice, how did you get prepared for that? And also, could you do the scream still?
No, I won't do it now. Yes, I could. So I didn't audition for that. I was just in the booth. The first time I ever even heard the words "the Werehog" was the director saying, "So you're going to be doing this character, so just give us a couple ideas." So right then and there, I had to come up with something, and I thought, well, he is a hedgehog or Werehog, so he's part Sonic. So I started with that, and then I just really like constrained my voice a lot, you know, to put the gravel and everything in it, and you know, I was super sick. I had a throat infection that entire recording process that only got worse and worse. And every day, you know, doing all those screams and whatnot, my throat would just become more and more constricted. And then they'd want like 5 takes of each scream, you know, because they had want an 8-second version, a 12-second version. So that was hard, man. But we pulled it off. I didn't want to sound sick. So that was the whole impetus behind. I think that made it a better performance because I was like, I can't sound sick. I don't want to lose this job. And then I lost the job. But I mean, not then, but the next game. So,
No, thank you so much.
yes, ma'am.
Hi, Joy with Moana Newly podcast. You mentioned before, like living with your,
That's right.
seeing his success, and auditioned for like 5 years before you got this break.
Yeah.
Why didn't you give up?
I knew, first of all, that even though it wasn't working out yet, it was going to. I always knew it. And I also knew that I didn't want to move back to Cleveland because it's not like, oh, I'll go back to my lavish life in Cleveland. It's like everybody in my family worked in factories. I didn't have any plans to go to college. And I thought, if I give up, what am I going to do? And even though I wasn't getting the big success in the beginning, I was getting little bites. I'd get a job here, I'd get a job there, and I'd get feedback from casting directors, and it made me feel like, all right, this is going to happen. And again, this goes to show what good support systems can really do for you, because I had people in my life, including my agent, including my aunt and my mom and grandmother, and people that were just like, you are talented, you are going to be really good, you're incredible at this. And even though part of me would be like, that's really nice of them to say, but how do they know? I think to myself, maybe they do know. Maybe they do know. So I just kept going because it was too much fun. And it was fun living on my own in New York City. And, I got to, one of my first jobs actually was, I got to work in the audience of sitcoms. So even though I never was on a sitcom, I got to at least be around. I was on the set of the Whoopi Goldberg show, like the entire run of that. Hope and Faith, Jim Gaffigan's show, Parker Posey had a show. I was in the audience, bringing the audience members to the bathroom. But I did get hit on by Megan Fox once, so that was really cool. So that kept me going, Sir.
Sam Morgan, the other geek Sam with Grown Ape Geeks. You had mentioned that previous casting directors had given you some tips, some advice, things you could do with some of the voice acting. When you have new characters that you are going to voice, what type of research do you do? Is it playing the game? Is it reading all of the content? Or is it just coming up with something original for your new character?
That's a great question. If there's an existing show, which I've auditioned for shows that are already on or games, I always like to look up at least a couple clips just to get the vibe. But a lot of times it's original stuff. So I don't have that luxury. So first and foremost, if there's a picture of the character, I like to look at it and start just coming up with little things like, does this work? But in this day and age now, because all the auditions are from my home studio, I at least have the luxury of pressing record, trying a couple things, and then sitting back, playing it, and like looking at the picture, thinking about the circumstances, and going, which one of these is like, am I responding to right now? And sometimes you hit, and sometimes you don't. There's characters I resonate with better. In fact, there's two things I'm working on right now, and both characters I have the same profession, and I'm like, it's just wild how sometimes you hit in you show up as the same thing for different people, different production companies, but it's a lot of. An acting teacher told me once in New York, you're an artist. Whether you're doing voiceover, whether you're doing on camera, theater, whatnot, you have to think like an artist. You can't sit there and think, what do they want? You really have to get turned on by the process, like an artist does. Like I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it right now because it's such a unique experience to create, and then especially when you create something and you really like it. Like I'll tape an audition, man, and if I really like it, I'll sit there for an hour and watch it over and over because I'm like, that was the perfect take. I love everything that happens. The takes I don't like, I never want to watch them once. You know what I mean? So there's just something that only I think happens for people who are in creative fields, and that could go for more than just acting, but when you can resonate with whatever you're doing and really feel good about it, there's something so special about that really keeps us coming back and auditioning and auditioning and auditioning, even though we've been rejected 1,000 times. It's like that 1,001st time you might get it,
Last question.
Oh yeah, who didn't get a question? You didn't get a question, ma'am? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Bruce Seeley from beatpump.com. So that's actually a great segue into what I wanted to ask you about, which was, so we often hear from voice actors about the definite benefits of that particular kind of gig, but I'd love to hear how it contrasted with your left turn over to the Orville and full on.
That's so funny. With the Orville, I auditioned for them several times, and they kept bringing me back. And in their casting office, and then COVID happened, and they were still auditioning people, and so I got to do that I have a little pool house with like a tape setup in there, so I got to do that. It's much the same thing because with voiceover, a lot of people don't realize is like you don't want to be a voice actor in the booth with your hands in your pocket unless this is the character you're doing. You know what I mean? You really have to conduct yourself and be physical and embody what you're doing, because I defy anybody to go into record themselves saying the same two lines with their hands in their pockets or actually giving it some motion and some, just some life, which was a great piece of advice a casting director gave me. She's like, you have to conduct yourself. So when I auditioned for that, much the same way, I knew what the guy looked like, how he stood, and the voice came out of like, because I can do voices. So everything sort of like coalesced in the right way. Is that the right word? It came together in the right way for that project. And yeah, I think like the next day or something, they put me on hold, and I was like, oh my God. And then he's not listed as the director, but Seth MacFarlane actually directed me in that scene. And I just remember we did the take, and it's just one line. I sat in prosthetics for 2.5 hours, I think. But I just remember hearing Seth MacFarlane go, that was damn good. And I was like, all right. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
All right. And can you tell everybody how they can follow you on social media?
Sure. I'm on Twitter or X and Instagram. Instagram is I don't know. Is it J Griff for real?
No, hold on.
Thank you. Someone help me.
It is
Real _ Jason Griffith on Instagram, and then Twitter X is J, the letter J, GRIFF, and then _ the letter with a number 4 and real.
And then we're gonna have do a quick couple clips, and then we'll move on to our next section.
Excellent. Thank you guys. This is fun. I don't think I did this last year. I don't think I did press last year.